Long ago, many years ago, we had game consoles like the PS3. These gargantuan beasts could pump out realistic looking games with solid frame rates. Yet we were stuck with the 3DS on the portable side, a console which was fine for the most part, but wasn't really that powerful and had a really bad battery. No, seriously, look, this is really bad. But then, Sony revealed the PlayStation Vita, the first handheld to truly replicate the PS3 games, not exactly power, with a pretty decent battery for 2011, and power that was close enough to work with pretty much every game on there. I should put a stop to serious voice. As you may know, the Vita was released in 2011. The hit release game was Little Deviants, which isn't a good launch title, but that's besides the point. It actually had a pretty decent couple of years on the market. Games like Killzone Mercenary are really fun, and they're nothing to laugh at. But seriously, this game still looks good today. Although I think there's a lot subjective, realistically this game is pretty solid, especially for the Vita, even if a lot of the game is just LOD to hell. And it's actually really impressive how they managed to get Killzone 3's lighting engine working on here. I mean, Killzone 3's lighting engine, even if it's modified, that's still really good. You also have to mention the amazing console ports. Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012 is one of the only ways to play the game on the go, excluding the Steam Deck, which is strange, but it's a pretty good port. Minecraft PlayStation Vita Edition was just the PS3 edition, and Focus Builders 1 was also just a PS3 edition, although I think it's a bit pathetic how it runs so badly. For what it is anyway, I'm sure they could have done something here. But something went wrong across the line. The 3DS sold 70 million units, which is not bad at all, even if it includes the 2DS too, and it was 80 quid, so it's not very surprising. The Vita sold 15 million. That's not very much better than the Wii U, and we know how the Wii U went. Now, for the first couple of years, the Vita was very much loved. There was a lot of exclusives released, and the console ports were amazing. And the handheld actually looked really good, especially the UI. The UI being a mix between the free-to-get Aero era and the upcoming simplification of design at the time, seen with Windows 8, which looks really bad, and Windows 10, which also looks really bad. But yeah, that still looks pretty good. And themes were an amazing addition to the Vita, because you could personalize your Vita. You could buy themes that had your favorite characters in them, or you could just get themes that looked interesting. And they did look better than the 3DS and definitely the PSP, because there's a lot more customizability here. Sony could do a lot more with changing icons and such with the Vita. And all of the games on the Vita were PS3 quality. And they had solid performance. I mean quality as in graphical. Like a lot of these games are not too bad, although some of them are, some of them aren't. Although the Vita did end up losing out on a lot of PS3 ports and exclusives for some reason, it was gifted with a lot of JRPGs if you're into those, and a lot of indie games like Don't Starve, Undertale, and Spelunky, making the portable really unique for what it is. Like no one cares about these games anymore for the most part, apart from Undertale. But yeah, but there was a new console releasing on the horizon. It wasn't the Xbox One, nope. It was the PS4, and they started to care about the Vita less and less because of the PS4. You know, Sony was making the most powerful console ever at that point. So the Vita was left to die past 2014. This is an issue because the Vita lost a lot of good games past this point. Most of the best games on here are from 2011 to 2014. There's a couple of memorable games such as Builders 1 in 2016, but that is literally it because Sony just didn't care. I mean, they had the remote play feature, but that's it, and that was just trying to get you to buy a PS4. And yeah, the Vita had a lot of potential, but no one knows what it is anymore, apart from modders and people who suck. I'm just kidding. But people care about it more now because of homebrew. Speaking of homebrew is a big thing on practically all systems nowadays. Ranging from the NES to even the Switch of all things, homebrew is very popular and super handy. If you somehow have idea what the term homebrew is, okay, I'm just gonna say the source is from Wikipedia. Here's your link, and the link will be in the description. Homebrew is a term for software produced by hobbyists for proprietary video game consoles. Proprietary basically meaning no one else can develop on them but certain people. And they're not intended to be user programmable, so it's basically hacking, but not bad. Ranging from user-made games to ports of other games, the Vita has like loads of mobile ports, like Hill Climb Racing, and to utility programs, Homebrew is massive on the Vita. Pretty much anybody with a Vita has homebrewed it, either to overclock the device. Here's a disclaimer. Overclocking will very rarely damage your device because it isn't even overclocking, by the definition. Even the highest clocks available here by the kernel just don't. They aren't the top you can get for these systems. The base for the CPU is 800. I can only guess the GPU would be 400 megahertz, and the RAM maybe, I don't know. But you can't get that because it would get really hot because the Vita uses passive cooling. I'm just gonna keep talking. Improving or downscaling the graphics depending on whatever you want, graphical quality or better performance, and being able to make your own custom themes. The homebrew scene on the Vita is truly impressive for what it is. I mean, there's a lot of people working on it for what it is, because, no one cared about this system. But there's been a whole new generation of people introduced to the Vita because of homebrew. That wasn't me. I only know what it is because of Dragon Quest Builders. That's just so much. Dragon Quest Builders isn't even a bad game, by the way. I just want to mention that. But as always, the Vita kind of just died because of Sony, and then it was brought back by the fans. It's just such an interesting console. It uses Lua. It was 2011, and it used Lua on a portable base. Lua is really old by then. That kind of confuses me that they didn't just use C. C would have been so much easier to use here, surely. But I'm probably wrong on that. But still, Lua of all things. But yeah, that was the video about the PS Vita. I hope you enjoyed watching this. This editing took like probably ages. I don't know. I'm recording this before I edit it, so yeah.